afternoon and welcome. It is Tuesday, the 28th of May, and the time here in, well, I would say Marbella. This is Benahavis. Benahavis is, let's just say, between Marbella and Estepona. You swing up on the Ronda Road, for example, and you can get to Benahavis that way. So that's where I am stationed. And before I say I'm sorry, welcome to my home. You're very on screen, that is. You're very welcome. Anyway, let's get on with the subject and matter today. I'm going to talk to you about my life. Well, sorry, I'm going to talk to you about a problem that arose because of my life on radio. It's a story I might have told before, but I don't mind telling it again because it's an extraordinary story. I had left the radio. I had been concentrating on the world of property when the receptionist in the office called me to say that the investigating branch of the Spanish police has been on the phone and wants to speak to me. Well, I don't speak Spanish. Well, certainly not fluent enough to speak to the investigating branch of the Spanish police. Security police, I think they said. But she translated, and she said that they would like to meet me. And I asked her to ask them what they want to meet me for. And she said, because they want to interview you about a matter that is private and not willing to discuss. I remember when I moved to Spain all those years ago, I remember I was driving into Portabanús. I was parking, this is before there was a barrier, and there was a knock on the window of the car. I've never lived in a foreign country before. I've always lived my life up to that point in Ireland. Anyway, knock at the window, and there was a guy, two men there knocking, and I thought to myself, Jesus, are they kidnappers? So I sort of rolled down the window and they said, can I help you? And they said, in Spanish they were speaking, and the one that I said, no comprende. I'd only just arrived, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And they said, can you get out of the car? Well, I got out of the car. I was absolutely, in a terrible state. All I thought of was Midnight Express, you know the movie, and I'm going to be locked up for something. And they said to me, they showed me that they had police badges, and they asked me to accompany them to the tower. I don't know if you know Portabanús, but there's a large tower where they have all the controls for boats and everything, but they also have the police headquarters. I don't know if it's still there. I was terrified. I said, what have I done wrong? Like almost crying. And they said, please follow us. So I went into the police and everything was busy there. Police, phones ringing everywhere. They brought me into the room and they said, could I identify myself? I felt like saying, if I looked in the mirror, I could. No, I didn't. I was in a state. So I said, yeah, my name's Maurice Boland. They said, can we have a look at your identification? No, I said, well, I don't have it with me. And they said, well, we need to see it. In so many words, you go nowhere till we see it. So I phoned the apartment, which was very close to Portabanús, which we'd moved into. I can't remember which one of the kids, but I suspect it was Daniel. And he was probably only 3 or 4, or 2 or 3, or even younger. And I said, hi, Daniel, can I speak to Mummy? And he goes, Mummy's in the shower. I said, no, I don't care. It's very, very important. Could you go and get Mummy? No, Daddy, we're watching television. I said, no, please, it's very, very important. Get Mummy. So, but I'd asked Mummy to call you. What's your number? And there was no mobile phones. So anyway, eventually he'd go, Mommy, Daddy's on the phone. Hey, Daddy, I'll ring you back. No, Jesus. Could you please go and get Mummy? Tell them I'm in trouble. So, what did you do, Daddy? No, I didn't do anything, but anyway, this went on. You know what kids are like? Wendy came to the phone. I explained. I said, I need my passport. And very shortly, I got my passport. The police looked at it, and they said, thank you very much, and just said, you can go now. That was it. No, I was always, I was terrified by that. Anyway, let's move forward, many years forward, and blah, blah, blah. I get this phone call in my office from the security investigating branch of the police of Spain. And they wanted to see me. And I said to her, I think this is a wind-up. What would they want to see me about? Anyway, I agreed. They asked, yes, they asked not to come to the police station or anything. They said that they would meet me anywhere I would like. So I said, well, I still thought it was a wind-up. I said, can we meet at El Corte Inglés tomorrow at the coffee bar at the top, which was there? And I don't speak Spanish, so I'll bring Wendy with me, who speaks Spanish. So anyway, along we went the next day. I said, Wendy, I'm sure this is a wind-up. The allotted time, I think it was 10 o'clock or something like that. And we're sat there having a coffee, waiting. There's no one in the coffee bar but us, waiting. 10 o'clock came. I think, thank God. 5 minutes past 10, nothing. About 7 minutes past 10, a guy in a plaid shirt and a pair of jeans approached us and said, Maurice Boland, and I nodded. He took out his big silver police badge, sat down, opened a little black book, took out a pen, and he said to Wendy that he wanted to ask some questions, but he did speak a bit of English. And in short, these are the questions he asked. He said, why in the 3rd of May, a year earlier, did I have a conversation on the phone with a Anjam Chowdhury? And many of you who are listeners will remember Anjam Chowdhury, who was a British Islamist. He was a very political activist. He's been described as the face of militant Islam. Simple, an Islamic extremist in the UK. You've heard him plenty of times on television, preaching and shouting the death to this. And I remember there was a thing on television about him that was bringing bodies back from some war, English soldiers, and he and his mates were demonstrating they deserved to die. This is this extremist. And Anjam Chowdhury, I hear you say, oh yeah, I remember him. So they asked me, they said to me, so on the 3rd of May, a year ago, you had a conversation with him. On the 18th of September, you had a conversation with Anjam Chowdhury. What was the conversation about? And why were you speaking to Anjam Chowdhury? And I said, because I have a radio show, and I invited him on my show on a number of occasions so I could face off with him, tell him how wrong, and we could have this open debate, which I enjoy. I had no time for Anjam Chowdhury at all and what he stood for, but I once had an Islamic fundamentalist on my show from after the 9/11, and I saw him on the front page of the Daily Mirror holding up in victory a photograph of some Islamic whatever, saying that he was responsible for the 9/11 atrocities, the Twin Towers. And I remember I interviewed this guy, and I remember what he said to this day, and it frightened the bejesus out of me. He said to me, you must remember, you can never threaten us because we embrace death the same way as you embrace life. Threaten to kill us, we're a martyr when we go to the heavens. You can never threaten us. We embrace death the way you embrace life. And that's frightened the bejesus out of me. But it didn't stop me interviewing someone. I would have, this is odd. You might think it odd, but I had the chance at the time that he'd lived. I would have liked to have introduced Hitler and asked him was he up. But anyway, members of Anjam's group have been linked between 25% and 40% of all terrorist-linked events in the UK up to 2015. Anyway, I explained all this to the policeman. The policeman closed his little black book, shook my hand. We asked would he like a coffee. I was so relieved because he said he'd never realised it was a radio show, etc., etc. And that was the last I ever heard of it. So sometime later, I was doing a radio show, and Lee Rigby, do you remember him? He was the young soldier who was walking the streets back to his barracks in UK, and he was attacked and attempted to behead him by these extremists. And I invited Anjam to come on my show to ask him what was his thoughts on this horrific crime. And he said he believed Lee Rigby deserved to die, and every other British soldier. And I don't know how people like this are allowed to live in England. Although he ended up in jail, I said to him, Anjam, you've been on my show half a dozen times, whatever. I'm going to now put the receiver down. I never want you or the scum like you ever on my radio show again. And that was it. So that was my sort of run-in with the security police of Spain. You know, been questioned, twice, and for something I know nothing about. Anyway, that was it. I don't mean something I know nothing about it. It was sort of related in a way. Okay. Now, I also want to speak while we're talking about negativity or stuff like that about Bruce Forsyth. My fallout with Bruce Forsyth. And it's, again, nothing to do with me. But when we moved for here, and the apartment we were in that time, I phoned looking for my passport, right next to Portabanus. It's called Andalusia del Mar. Not that it'll mean to anyone in Ireland, England or Germany, wherever they're listening to, but it's walking distance. It's on the sea, on the seaside. It's on the beach, walking distance to Portabanus. And I've always, you know, I'm coming to Marbella and I've heard about Marbella full of celebrities and Rod Stewarts and all that, and I'm dying to meet them all, etc., etc., etc. I hadn't met any yet. We'd only just arrived. And there's a ring at my bell. It must have been about 8 in the morning. And who was standing there? Bruce Forsyth. I couldn't believe Bruce. He was the huge star in the Generation game then, well before Strictly Come Dancing. Huge star, the biggest star in England by far. I think they had like 25 million viewers for each Generation game. You remember, of course you do. And he's there standing at my door. He said, sorry for disturbing you. I can't do his voice. Sorry for disturbing you, but can I use your phone? I have a golf game arranged and I'm delayed. I had a phone in my apartment. There's no mobile. I said, of course you can. And he came and he used my phone. And when she walked out, I think, I'm not going to say with the curlers in her hair, but she wasn't expecting Bruce Forsyth to be sitting there. And I introduced, I said, Wendy, this is Bruce Forsyth. And Wendy said, hi. She's getting the kids ready for school. And anyway, I can't remember what, but somehow Bruce's wife's name came up. Winnie. It's, it's Winamila, Winniella, but Winnie is what she was called. She was 1975 Miss World, Puerto Rican. Beautiful, beautiful woman. But she was upstairs in the apartment. And I think he said if Winnie needs to use the phone, is that okay? And I think Winnie came down, met Wendy. I can't remember the exact details, but Winnie played tennis, Wendy played tennis, and they started to talk and meet up to play tennis. Anyway, I think then we went out for dinner, Bruce and myself, Winnie and Wendy, to the Portabanus for dinner. And he had a plaster on his nose, on the bridge of his nose, a little plaster. And I said, what happened to you, Bruce? And he said, he was going off. He said, I was going off to play a game of celebrity golf and I walked into a glass door. Just something like that. It was okay, nothing. So we had a lovely evening, I mean, Bruce is funny on television, but unlike a lot of comedians, he's a genuinely nice guy, I thought. Anyway, the next day I got a phone call from journalists called Pat and Barry Tracy, who, I knew them, I don't know from where or whatever. I can't remember. Actually, forget that name. It probably wasn't them. But somehow we were spotted out and somehow they got hold of me. I can't remember. It's too long ago. And so what happened to Bruce? And I said, he walked into a glass door. He's playing a celebrity golf game. Why? I said, no, they're just wondering. And that was it. But that made the papers. Some gossip column. Bruce Forsyth walks into a glass door. Was he sober? I can't remember. But Bruce got a hold of me and said to me, if you think befriending me so you can sell £25 stories to the press, forget it. Not interested, don't want to see you again. Winnie doesn't want to play tennis with Wendy, it's all over. And that was it. That was it. He dumped me. I was walking down Portabanus in a terrible state, and a friend of his was there who I'd met with Bruce when we were walking to go to the restaurant at night. I'd never met him before. Singer Kenny Lynch. And I was walking past, I saw Kenny. I thought, I wanted to get this off my chest. I said, "Hi, Kenny." And I told Kenny, and he said, "Oh, don't mind Bruce, he's an awful old lady. Oh, don't mind." That's not meant to be sexist, by the way. "He's an awful old lady, moans and groans about everything. He'll forget it in 5 minutes." Oh, I felt a little better then. Meanwhile, years go on, and we moved, Wendy, myself, and the kids, to a new apartment. It was a duplex penthouse, again, quite close to Portabanus. And one morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, I walked down the stairs to take the children to school. And when I got to street level, who was standing there but Bruce and Winnie and 2 other people? And Bruce looked at me and I looked at him. We hadn't spoken for 3 years, I can't remember how long. I said, "Good morning, Bruce." And he said, "Good morning, Morris." And Bruce said, "Do you mind me asking why you're here?" That's my question. I said, "Bruce, I live here." And I pointed up to the penthouse, the duplex, and he said, "Oh." I said, "Bruce, why are you here?" He said, "I've just bought the apartment below you." So it's like the duplex, and then there's the garden apartment, and that was his with the garden. And I put my hand and I said, "Bruce, you're very, very welcome. Remember, going back those years, I never sold any story to any paper. I'm not guilty of doing it. I now was involved with the Mandy Smith story myself personally, and therefore, honestly, Bruce, come, enjoy, live a private life, because nothing will ever come out from it." He thanked me, etc., etc., etc. That was it. A week or so later, I can't remember all these timing, I had a call from a journalist I know, because Mandy Smith thing was happening then. I'll go into that another day. But she became one of the most famous people in the UK at the time. And they wanted to come and interview me about her, and I said fine, because I was managing them. And they came up, they were sitting on my terrace, and when they brought out some beers and some coffee or whatever, and as they looked over my terrace, they could look down to the garden below. And there, sitting on a deck chair, without his syrup of figs, I think means a wig. Is that right? I'm trying to speak some cool language here. Without his wig was Bruce. He had 2 little black things on his eyes, the plastic things for your sunbathing. Hands were like that. He actually looked quite funny. But, they said, "Jesus, that's Bruce Forsyth." And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Mac, Jimmy, go and get your camera." I said, "No, no, 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 no." And Wendy got up, "No way, Jose." They said, "But you know what that photograph's worth?" "I don't care. It's not being taken." No, no, no. We had a right argument about it. He said, "This is a free world." I said, "But this is my terrace, and you're not taking any photograph of Bruce." And I was delighted. I'm proud of myself to have sent them away. Anyway, a day later, I think, it was a newspaper called Today. It's gone now. And it was Chris Hutchins was the guy who wrote the column, the gossip column in it. I think it was Chris who wrote it or something. But it says that the height of bad taste. Bruce Forsyth's friend, Morris Boland, tried to sell us a photograph of Bruce sunbathing without his wig. Oh my God. What is this? I was in deep shock. And I went right around to Bruce's his apartment, knocked at the door, and he opened the door. He's there. And I had the paper and I shoved it into Bruce's hand. I said, "Bruce, on my children's life, I had nothing to do with this." And I told him I had the journalists were up with me and they asked me. I told them the whole story. But he said, "Well, thank you for saying that and doing that." But seemingly that night he went out with his good friend Sean Conroy, who knows another friend of mine, and seemingly said to Bruce, had said to Sean, "Morris, my neighbour, is at it again." You can't win, can you? Thanks for joining us. Join me again soon and have a wonderful evening.